we were going to have a presentation from Eugen.
So Eugen is going to be the first presenter, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So Eugen, introduce yourself and start sharing your screen, please.
Yeah, just a moment. Let me share my screen.
I will try to reach out to Girish, yeah?
So Girish is the next presenter after Eugen.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
All
Yep.
good, perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, then I assume we can start with the presentation. Right?
Very good. Yes.
Can you repeat, please? Sorry.
Can we start with the presentation?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, good afternoon. First of all, welcome to our next session regarding the digital transformation towards a data-driven company. And today, I just want to briefly cover the technological capabilities and the technological aspects that are required from our perspective, required today in the process manufacturing industry. Yeah, I will start traditionally with a short introduction of myself. My name is Eugen Mirosch. I'm based in Germany, and until the last week, I was intended to make this presentation for another company that you all probably know. It is the Norwegian company that is called Norsk Hydro or Hydro. And I've been working for the 10 years in this company, and last week it was announced that our division, our business area that belonged to the Hydro, it was sold to an American private equity company, KPS Capital Partners. And since then, since the 1st of June, we have a new name and we have a new logo and we have a new company. So we became a standalone. Basically, I'm heading a data and analytics department in Speira now. Before it was Hydro. And I'm responsible for the strategy of data analytics strategy, but also the technical implementation and a rollout of our data analytics platform to different locations. Just a short introduction. As I said, the deal was closed on the 1st of June. Nevertheless, we still remained a global company. We have still several plants in Norway and in Germany. We're about 5,000 people. We have one R&D center in Germany and also multiple sales offices across the globe. And what we are doing, we are producing aluminium. So we are a manufacturing company, and yeah, due to sustainability, the recycling is currently playing also an important role. Okay, so honestly, these recent changes that we had and experienced, they didn't really affect our digital strategy or digital execution. It doesn't really matter who the owner of your company is. This digital is still considered to be a key driver towards an innovation, first of all, but also it contributes to the increased productivity, your quality improvements, and also it helps you to secure your competitive advantages. So what you can see on this slide is actually some of our use cases and some of our work streams that are currently ongoing or planned. And it doesn't really matter if you're about to implement a material traceability for your material flows in the plant. If you want to build a digital twin to do some simulations, everything is laid or based on the two foundational layers. And you can see them on the bottom of the slide. The first one is, first of all, the technological foundation, the digital foundation that in our case included, for example, the cloud computing, then the data analytics tools, industrial Internet of Things, and the cybersecurity. But another important layer, it relates more to your organization, to your people, to your to their competences, to their skills. And the combination of these foundational things is very, very crucial for your digital transformation. Let me briefly tell you a little bit how we started our digital transformation. And yeah, as I mentioned, we started it about 5 years ago at the Hydro company. At that time, we initiated a kind of a global project where we brought people from different plants, from different locations together with it, and just thought, how should our foundation look like? What are the best practices? What are the recommendations here? What we would like to achieve, and how technology could help us with. Later on, we started another project that was more focused on the data and analytics. And in this, I should mention, it was a diagnostics project, first of all. So we tried to evaluate where we are currently staying. It was in 2018. And what is our target state, what we would like to achieve, and what is currently lacking. So a kind of simple gap analysis could be really helpful, understanding your weaknesses, and also to make a kind of a good plan and a strategy. So what you can see here on the slide, it's actually the findings and feedbacks that we gathered in a series of different interviews with our data analytics stakeholders and managers on a different organizational levels, starting from the shop floor employees and to the executives. We just asked what we would like to have. And very often they said, okay, so we would like to analyze our machinery data, our data from our industrial sensors. At that time, it was not possible. We couldn't store and process the data really effectively. Another important point was the material tracing. So you should imagine we are in the process manufacturing industry where you just got one piece of aluminum, one big piece of aluminum, and then in a series of different manufacturing steps, you are doing your final products. And this intermediate steps and the traceability, it is extremely important in many of our use cases. Related to the quality, for example, if you want to analyze what was the problem, what was the root cause of your quality problems, for example. So yeah, it was obvious for us that we need new capabilities, we need new tools, and we need a new data analytics platform. So that was the start where we started to build a new technology. And just let me share you a high-level architecture of our data analytics platform. So we started with the industrial Internet of Things. So we tried to ingest and to get the data from our industrial sensors and from the POCs. Developed some gateway applications to bring it into the cloud. And yeah, and we decided to use it and to build this platform in the cloud due to the scalability reasons. We wanted to scale our use cases and also the tools and solutions across our plants in different locations. And yeah, that was the main reason why we decided for the cloud. The next step was to, if you gather all your data in a data lake, the next step was to build a kind of understandable and comprehensive data model that would include the data from all your different manufacturing steps and processes, but also from different systems. I will present you a slide later on and explain it in a bit more detail. Another observation and a demand from the business was that they wanted to have new analytics environments. For example, our data scientists and engineer, they wanted to have a data science lab. And we didn't have it, so that was also one part of our platform. And in the end, we implemented some data cataloging tools, and in order to govern the data properly, but also the CI/CD tools for the deployment automation were quite helpful in our case. Well, yeah, this is the most important part, I should admit. It was the creation of this common data model for our rolling mills. And on this picture, you can see the description how many different manufacturing steps and operations we could have in our business, and starting from the casting and to the packaging and delivering to the customer. So we tried to get to cover all these steps in our data model. And at the later stage, we just got everything that we could and enhanced this data model with the data from our systems and applications, starting according to the ISO 95 hierarchy, starting with the process data, where we got the data from the sensors and the PLCs, temperature, speeds, for example. Then one level up, we got the data from the manufacturing systems, production data, timestamps, etc. And at the end, the data from the ERP solutions, like customer orders, customer data. At the end, we got a quite powerful material tracing, a quite powerful data model that we could use in different use cases. And just to give you an example, or one case where we tried to identify the bottlenecks in our supply chain to implement a kind of a material floor and the inheritance within the aluminum cluster in Germany, where we have 3 plants located very close to each other. And yeah, the results were quite significant from my perspective. So as you can see on the diagram, we can identify that, for example, from the hot rolling step and the cutting step, it is about 18 days of waiting times. So our supply chain managers, they could then check what was happening there. And yeah, so with the help of this simple application, we could really improve our supply chain, improve the forecast, inventory forecast, first of all, and at the end, as a nice bonus, increase our productivity. Yeah.
Eugen, time problem. If
yeah, the final slide summary. Data analytics is one of our main contributors to the digital transformation. Scalability of the cloud could really bring you good benefits, and material traceability is the foundation for many use cases, especially in the process manufacturing industry. Technology in a combination with the Agile philosophy could really speed up your transformation. Some challenges that we observed were more related, not related to the technology, but more related to the organization. For example, governance and executive buy-in. Yeah, we will speak about it a bit later probably. And yeah, so if you plan your data analytics adoption plan, you need to also to reflect your company culture. That is everything I wanted to share with you.
Thanks.
If you have any questions, please feel free.
Yes. So there are 2 questions. One is from Natalia. She says, have you been able to scale these use cases? If not, what do you see as the biggest challenge?
Partly. So yes and no. Some of the use cases there, they could be really easy to scale up and roll out. For example, we started for 1 business unit, and then we just needed to, since we had all the data in a data lake in a one common data foundation, so to say, we just simply had to change some filters, and then we could get some results. But sometimes it could be really difficult due to the different IT landscapes and different interfaces and different business operations and different plans. So this is what you should keep in mind.
Thanks a lot. Girish, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Eugen. You can close the presentation. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Eugen, for that insightful presentation. That was really good. And I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. That is great. And then, as I said, thank you so much, Eugen, for your presentation. And I actually want to take this as a segue. Sorry, too quick. As a segue that you touched upon two things there, Eugen, as the capability buildings. And there are capabilities that you need to build from a technology perspective for this transformation and from an organization perspective, the culture, the people, the organization, and so on. And we have a panel, a wonderful panel coming up after this very quick discussion from my side, where they will get to present. But then before we get there, what I wanted to also touch upon was the challenges. In order to do this, in order to get into this transformation, there are actually a lot of challenges, both from technology as well as from the organization, the soft aspects perspective. And that's what I wanted to touch upon before we throw it back to the panelists to get their view of how have they been not only identifying, facing these challenges, but also trying to get solutions for them. So that's what my intention for a quick talk from my side is. My name, of course, I should present myself, is Girish Agarwal. I work for Piab as the Chief Digital and Information Officer. I have been a technologist for almost 2.5 decades now, multiple roles in multiple companies. I worked as a consultant, but last 7-8 years have been leading in the product companies to set up innovation units and to set up digital units, so to say. So that's in a short nutshell about me. But I think I don't need to get into what data and what digitalization and what this advanced analytics and AI can do for us. We have seen that in the case of Cambridge Analytica. We have seen that probably also in the case of Amazon with an inverted arrow, where they want to change the entire supply chain, for example. It's not driven by the need, but they can predict what you need and send it to you and rather collect back, rather than waiting for your orders, for example. So we don't need to get there. And I think we all are probably also aware that all these data analytics is already everywhere. The other day I was so surprised, I looked into the toothbrush from Brown, which was actually on the device based on your usage patterns, trying to optimize the angles and the speeds with which it moved, for example. And then, all the Fitbit watches, all the automation that we have on the factories, the cars, and you name it. It's just anywhere and everywhere, which is transforming almost all the industry. So I don't think we have to get there or talk about how important. But the important part is that on one hand, if I look through, there are big claims being made that digitalization and AI in specific is going to deliver trillions of dollars to the economy, and different publications, different numbers, but overall, it's a big size of the prize that we are talking about. 15.7 trillion and then 26% growth, 30% growth year on year for the next 10 years. Again, I'm not trying to quote here and say what is right or what is wrong. But in case, if we have to achieve this, how do we make sure we don't go through a winter, which AI has already gone through? Because this is nothing that the advanced data analytics and data processing, well, the first time it came across was in 1954 in the Dartmouth conference when John McCarthy started this. But we went through, for whatever reasons, limitations of hardware, software, data, blah, blah, blah. We did go through a big winter. And how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? And I think that we are in a very good point of inflection also because of this pandemic. There are so many studies that we see out there where the digital acceleration has actually been seen because of the pandemic. Many companies actually addressing and agreeing to that. But again, back to the point, how do we make sure that this is big ops? This is big data world, this is AI world, and not big oops world, for example. And you touched upon that aspect already, Eugen, the technology, the platform, building those capabilities that you mentioned, cloud computing, data analytics, industrial IoT, cybersecurity. But also at the same time, you mentioned there was another part, the people and organizations. So that's why I say sometimes me being a technologist shouldn't say that, but technology is the easy part. And how do we make sure, and there is no one size fits all. Some people try to put more money into it, put a team, put an innovation lab, put 5 project managers if something about to fail, or make an innovation unit. But on the other hand, we have these agile ways of working, small teams, slicing and dicing our problem in a clever way. Probably that could be a way. That's another approach that companies are taking. For example, minimal viable products or minimal lovable product, as I heard the other day as well, where we don't know. For example, I remember the first project that we ran almost 2.5, 3 years ago with respect to data science. Our sourcing department came and said, okay, what is the statement of work? What are you going to achieve at the end of the project? What accuracy will you achieve? Because we are paying this to our vendor. And I said, we don't know. So there are new ways of working. Well, the accuracy of the algorithm could be 5%, 10%, could be 90%. And we will not know unless we do that. So having different approaches going forward, do we have the right mindset in the company? The success rate is not that high. It's not like implementing an ERP solution or a CRM solution. It's like implementing a test, learn, and change methodology over and over again. Are we okay to fail? Is that culture mindset accepted? The new ideas which are coming on the table all the time, are we making sure we are not killing them? It's very easy to say, oh, I don't see the ROI. It's very different from what we do today. But to make that one idea click, which makes a big difference, we have to be very careful, for example, and adopting new business models. Traditional industries that I'm coming from as industrial manufacturers, we have been in this distributor business, dealer business, B2B business for a long time. But with dynamic pricing, value-based services, hyper-personalization, where we are talking about a batch size of 1, where we are talking about self-learning machines. How do we sell them? We were working on one of the concepts, which also is very interesting, is that we humans are valued more if we have more experience. But our machines, the older they get, they lose the value. Can we somehow give machines an intelligence so that if a chainsaw has cut 50 trees, that's worth more than a chainsaw which has cut 5 trees, for example? And how do we come across these business models and adopt them going forward is what these technologies, these data-driven methodologies can enable us. But are we ready as an organization for it? We, as an organization, probably are sometimes too big. We work with a lot of startups, for example, to give the agility to us, to give the quick reaction times. But then at the same time, it comes with a challenge. Now, all of a sudden, we have an IP from a company, 5-people company, going into my solutions and services. Can I maintain it? Can I support it? Can I do that globally for all my customers, for example? And how do we leverage the whole knowledge that we have with universities, research projects, PhD positions, master thesis, constantly for new business model innovation, and the talent. So there are so many, because talent is not readily available. It's the same, I would say, not tremendous small, not tremendous big, but the same pool of talent which is available, which we need to tap, upskill internally maybe, or sometimes look into totally different ways of acquiring that talent, like gig economy and so on going forward. So, as I said, the boot camps, upskilling internally, how do we make sure we are not only doing these POCs? The earlier question was a very relevant one, that how have you been able to scale it? I think doing a POC in an innovation unit is rather easy because you hold the budget, you have the data, you control almost everything. But then doing that at scale together with the organization is a bigger challenge. And new kinds of jobs, we have never seen before. Well, did we have data scientists in our portfolio 5 years ago? No, we didn't. And there are many other roles like the design, deep learning engineers. We are talking about ML engineers, ML ops engineers that we want in our portfolio of competencies going forward. And of course, the importance of data that I spoke about. So eventually what I want to get to, because I want to have a discussion with the panelists, I think that's more interesting than me talking here, is that governance is probably another area where we are facing challenges when we are doing this digital transformation. How do we make sure we are not controlling different parts of the organization, but rather enabling them through governance? How are we not getting into a traditional ways of governance where we try to control, but actually give them the empowerment, give them the acceleration through the governance and so on? And that's why what I want to discuss with the panel that we have today, Eugen, we have Olof, we have Eminé, and we have Ramesh. And you have already heard Eugen, who spoke about some of the capabilities that we are building or that companies are building in order to achieve this digital transformation. And I touched upon a few challenges, for example, that we face while building these competencies. So what I would want to do, and that in this panel discussion, actually get some viewpoints from the others of what challenges have they faced and have some discussion around that. So please help me welcome this esteemed guests and people that we have here. So very, very welcome. Before we get started, just a bit of housekeeping for all our audience in here. If you have any questions for any of our panelists, please post them in the chat. I will try my best to attend to them. I don't promise, but I will try my best. So use the chat functionality, post in your questions. And what we will do is that let's give a few minutes to all the panelists. And me and Eugen have already presented ourselves. So let that be for the remainders of us. So let's start with you, Eminé, where you could introduce yourself rather quickly. And then we will then follow with you, Olof, followed by Ramesh. And then we get into the questions to discuss right away.
Thank you so much, Girish. Great presentation. My name is Olausson Fourounjieva, and for the moment I'm consulting at Kesko as a digital marketing and analytics lead. Previously, I built and was heading the data analytics and insights team at Nobia, and we were in charge for closer to 20 different brands across Europe. And I have been working with both B2B, B2C, omnichannel, as a consultant, as an in-house expert, being in the IT area for over 20 years. I have seen in and out, and that's why I appreciate really much all those insights you presented earlier today, because it's really valuable to highlight all that and highlight the opportunities and challenges and open up for the new mindset for the importance of the leadership.
Thank you, and very, very welcome, Eugen. Maybe can we have a few words from you, Olof?
Yeah, hi. My name is Olof Granberg. I work for the ICA Group. So I am responsible for the technology side of our AI, machine learning, and what was previously called big data. Now we're just talking data, I would say. And I very much agree. I think that a lot of these complexities that have been mentioned are concerns to be addressed. And I think we'll get into those in the panel. But, yeah, thank you.
Perfect. So very looking forward to this, Olof. And Ramesh.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Ramesh Panakkal, and I work for WhereScape. We're a data automation software company, and I am the customer success manager for EMEA that is responsible for looking after our enterprise clients, so our large global blue chip customers with incredibly complex estates and so on. My background is actually in risk analytics. So prior to joining WhereScape, I was a former customer. I was at Xerox Financial Services for a decade or so, and there I was the risk analytics director, so responsible for creating, maintaining, and coordinating all of the risk analytics and reporting for the European leasing group. Yeah. So it's nice to be back actually talking about analytics and in this space. So looking forward.
Great. Thank you to have you, and thank you for that introduction, and great to have you, Ramesh, there. So let's get into this right away. And we have touched upon some capabilities, we have touched upon some challenges, and I think I saw a comment on the chat as well that, okay, we have heard a lot about complexities now. Let's get into, okay, what is it that we can do or what we are doing? But maybe one last question before we actually get into the approaches and that we and you guys, you panelists in your companies are taking. Maybe let's just go around all of the panelists one more time, last time, to understand what are your challenges that you face. Is it more on the technology side? Is it more on the organization side? Is it a mix? Or are there some other aspects from this challenges perspective that you want to highlight? So please, if you could give us your view of the challenges to start with rather quickly before we then start dealing them one by one and getting your view upon it. And maybe if we can start with you, Eminé.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think that it's rather a mix. And on one hand, we have this organizational challenge where the culture is not ready for the digital transformation, and where we have this silo effect, and the dots must be connected. The cross-departmental collaboration has to be introduced, and data literacy, all the collaboration processes and the processes overall must be updated and be in place. And you know, there's such a lack of understanding sometimes from the stakeholders for what should be done and why it is important to do it now, how fast the technologies are developing. And in the end of the day, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, but the technologies are developing so much faster than we are developing as human beings. So that leadership issue is still there from my perspective. And then on the other hand, on the MarTech stack side, the issue of scalability and adaptability, that's also something to look into and to review the way we're working with the technologies and with the solutions. Because sometimes it is really difficult in the big companies. I have seen it several times, to take the next step, which is really needed in order to get those business results we are looking for, using what there is already there. And it's really difficult to scale it up. And then it requires a completely new approach. And many companies are going through the restructurization and moving from the central to local and back. And it is another really big challenge. So in the end of the day, it's both technology and the leadership mindset, things which have to be solved within an organization in order to succeed.
Good. So that actually resonates with quite a lot that has been brought up so far. So that's really good. Ramesh, any views from you on that, on the challenges within your specific company or industries that you belong to?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, from my perspective, I will talk in terms of experience of what I see with my customers, because you know, that's really operationally where we see these things. And you know, to Eminé's point, you know, we see a diverse set of issues that companies are trying to overcome, right? And in some cases, it's down to strategy and not having a clear strategy, not quite knowing what they want to do, greenfield approach, and kind of fumbling through their process in a discovery sense to then come to a conclusion, and then having to revisit that strategy because it doesn't quite do what they want to do. It's also trying to make sure that they are you know, they're in a position where they could accelerate their time to value. You know, it's all very well and good trying to adopt data-driven services and trying to permeate that throughout the organization. But if you spend so long creating your strategy and creating your technology base and getting everybody trained up and so on and so forth, your time to value falls off a cliff. you know, the internal customers that you're trying to serve don't have any perceptual value from your activity, and then, you know, you lose engagement. And without that engagement and without that traction within the organization, you know, this is where things fail. So, and, you know, from a technology standpoint, again, I mean, she very eloquently put it that, you know, we are in a state where the technology space is moving so quickly, you know, it's very hard sometimes to keep up. And even if you are trying to keep up, in some cases, you know, you're locked into your existing technology stack. So if you want to be able to move, you know, let's say you have a massive on-prem SAP data environment, ERP system going into BW, if you then want to, that's a very significant investment, right? If you then want to move to the cloud, then, you know, what do you do with that investment? How do you leverage that? How do you then adopt a new cloud-based environment? And, you know, even within the cloud space, for example, there are numerous vendors, and there are new vendors coming up every day, and they all bring something else to the table. So the ability to be agile and be able to move and be liquid in your solution set in a way which isn't disruptive is I think one of the other things that I'm seeing quite prevalently in the industry.
Good. No, I thank you for your insights. So strategy and engaging the whole organization into the strategy,
very much
and
so.
of course the technology part.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen in ICA around you, Olof?
So, and I mean, everything I would say resonates from what has been mentioned before. To highlight a few things, and I think returning, I see there are a few questions in the chat around POCs and so on. That is a challenge that we addressed quite early, a few years ago, but it was a big challenge until we addressed it, is to have that kind of space where you can innovate, but it's not a particular, it's not a separate silo where it takes months and months of work to go from that POC environment into your production environment. So what we basically addressed was, okay, so we have a data lake. How do we address that we have a POC environment on that data lake where we can have our data scientists, they can do whatever they like, more or less, within a controlled environment, and then we can take the best of that and start productionizing it. So I think creating a space for innovation and not just saying go nuts, here's a completely white paper, go nuts, but rather having that in mind when you do that has helped us a lot. Mm-hmm. The two main things I would say that are a challenge in general is, first of all, the data literacy. How do you use data in your business? How do you go from a business problem to an analytical problem? I think that part needs to be, that competence needs to be raised on both the IT side and in the business side. Because in some cases we just say, oh, here's your data, and then the IT side can sometimes be a bit, oh, but you have the data, why aren't you doing wonderful things with it? And then, I mean, you kind of need to raise the competence on both sides. The other side that is tech related, but not on the non-availability on tech, is that the tech is still quite complex, I would say. And the part where it gets easier every day, I would say, but at the same time we're expanding the toolbox. And I would say the big complexity in big companies, how do we work with that complex toolbox in a fairly similar way? So without putting all of the constraints, without building a perfect platform for several years and then handing it to people, how do we collaborate between development teams, between DevOps teams and platform teams and so on, and getting that rolling in a good collaborative way, rather than saying, we're going to build this, you guys build that over there. I think that's a challenge that is very tech related. But if you solve that, you can get really good speed.
No, I think the collaboration is I fully agree. And that's both on, as you said, on the technology side, but also on the organization side, which helps quite a lot. And Eugen, maybe some words from you as well on does this resonate from a challenges standpoint, or anything that you want to add in there?
Yeah, actually, I recognized a lot of challenges from the previous speakers as well. So we experienced them. I think important point here, the alignment between the business and IT, and that is quite important. But maybe to add to the challenge, to our list of challenges, maybe one thing that is especially important and critical when it comes to the digital transformation or data analytics initiatives. I think you need to have an executive buy-in. I mean, you need to have a sponsor. You need to have someone from the top management who will support your ideas and initiatives. For example, in our case, we had a challenge when it came to the governance. Again, the alignment with the business and governance, as you know, it is something where business should be also involved. It's not an IT business as it is. And for these kind of topics and these kind of questions, it is very important that someone from your executive level just drive it and drive this program, governance program, or etc. It is one point. Another thing, maybe what I could also add is that the culture, I also mentioned it in my presentation before, the culture of your company, corporate culture, so to say, and could be also challenging. I don't say that it is always a problem, but it could be challenging, especially in environments where people had the flexibility, for example, before, and they decided what kind of tools they will use and all these things. And if you then want to centralize or align all of it together, maybe to bring some governance into it, then could be a bit challenging. And we have also, we often heard the message that why should I use these new tools if I've been working with my old ones for 20 years and it was working fine. So important here to explain the benefits to the people and explain why this change makes sense. And what our answer to this challenge was actually that we initiated a program with our HR. Related to the cultural transformation of our company. So this willingness to change and be open to the changes, it is one of the points in this cultural transformation program.
Great, thank you for that insights from you, Eugen. So I think, well, I do not want to go through the entire list of what we have come up with now. But then at the same time, I think some things that come out, I would say one of them was the scalability challenges that we had. And I think Olof did touch upon that, saying that somehow if we can have a controlled innovation, so meaning, and those are also relating to some of the questions that I see now on the chat also, that on one hand, we should be able to do POCs, have some innovation, but on the other hand, it cannot just be wild, that can never be scaled, for example. So some sort of a balance there, and then there the technology platforms, common data stores, and so on play a major role. So that could be a very good insight for our audience here. But then the other part which I think which came up in was the collaboration, the alignment. And to be honest, it's not only the internal alignment and internal collaboration between the teams, between IT and business, but maybe with externals who can instigate innovation, who can challenge us or show us some parts which we might be blinded with, for example. So maybe let's go once again around the panel here, and let's start with you, Eugen, this time. That what do you think, what role does collaboration and alignment, not only internally, but also externally plays in overcoming these challenges?
Yeah, I'm very happy that you highlighted these two types of collaboration, because when we speak of collaboration, we often mean only internal maybe, but I agree, external is very important here. And to differentiate it a little bit, I will probably start with the internal collaboration. Just to give you an example where it could be really helpful, and it is the cross-functional teams that we often hear. So it is clear it is not possible to have all the knowledge and the competences and know-how in one person or one department. This knowledge is spread across the different organizational units, and especially when it comes to the digital transformation and digital use cases. The setup of the cross-functional teams, where we just bring people from different departments together, give them freedom and hear their ideas, and so that will definitely benefit, and it will boost your productivity. I mean, and from this perspective, this internal collaboration is very important. With regards to the external collaboration, here again, in our case, for example, we often use external collaboration in cases where we think we may be lacking competences, experiences, the know-how. So in this case, we just rely on our external partners. One example, trainings. Of course, we can do these trainings by ourselves. We have initiated a data literacy program with different streams and etc. We could do these trainings by ourselves, but we are not teachers. It is not our business to do these trainings, and it's just much better to just find a partner for this who just doing it all the time and is a core business, and just work very close together, and also learn from this partner. I think learning effect is also very important when it comes to the external collaboration.
Great, thank you so much. So, you actually touched upon that. So, external collaboration could be actually used to get away with the challenge of talent and the competencies, for example, that if we are opportunistic and try to utilize them. But any thoughts from you, Olof, that how have collaboration helped you out, both internal and external, for the list of challenges that we discussed earlier?
So I would say that in my mind, I think collaboration is extremely digital, or is extremely important to all digital transformations. And I think within the data and analytics space, you have a lot of opportunities for collaboration. So what I see is that you need to, and unfortunately, collaboration does not always happen by itself. I would say you're lucky if it does. If it doesn't, you have to facilitate it, you have to give it space, you have to really bring that value story of why do we collaborate, what is it that we get out of it, and actually help that along. And I think that the collaboration is on several different dimensions. First of all, I mean, on the being an IT guy, the technical side is obviously quite interesting. I mean, just working with the common platforms, with how do we work with our data pipelines, with our data management, with our models, with our DevOps, MLOps, DataOps, all of those kind of things, and common frameworks and things like that is just a huge potential in collaboration and in how to scale your implementations. But then, even more importantly, is the collaboration that Eugen mentioned around business and IT, because we can build the best platforms and have extremely good data in a nice foundation. But if we don't do anything with it, we might as well just have saved that money for something better. So you need to really push your deliveries closer and closer to the business. And when you put people together in fairly small teams, I would say, so that everyone gets to speak, everyone gets to add their viewpoints, you can really get down to what is the business problem here, what is it, what's the opportunity that we're trying to solve, and then have that kind of really collaborative way of working there. And in the same manner, collaborating between business units when it comes to what are the use cases we're building, how are we building them, how are we using our data. Here, look at my dashboard. This is how we did this and this and this. So that kind of collaboration is as important and as valuable as on the IT implementation side. And then, of course, when it comes to externals, I think most companies that do implementations use either partners or use freelancers, some type of augmentation or collaboration there. And I think there are a lot of good companies out there that can give you viewpoints on how you build things and as well as what to build. So I think that being open there and having those kind of discussions is also valuable.
No, that's a very good insight, Olof, that, really utilizing those to get that viewpoint externally can really be a game changer. But Emmy, I know Olof touched upon the business and IT collaboration point that you mentioned earlier, but what are your thoughts on collaboration as a means to get away with these challenges?
A lot of very bright points I have heard already by now, but I think the key term in this case is the willingness to change. And that is about being engaging and inspiring as a leader and have the competence in order to develop and stand for the strategy, to have clear goals and be able to present it. So storytelling is a big part of this. And at the same time, being a coach and being a mentor for the team and even teams from other departments, it's also really important. And I personally work a lot with this. And I think this approach with running digital transformation events, for example, where you put together by the same table people who don't have a chance probably on a daily basis to work together, to talk to each other, but they really should do it. That's also something I use a lot, and the best practices and mind sharing sessions. I appreciate a lot the results of such events and the initiatives, because everybody gets enlightened and it creates an opening and willingness to take the next step, because we are working in the area where not everything is so easy. There are things which are really, really heavy, taking a lot of time, taking a lot of resources, which are probably sometimes or oftentimes actually are not in place, and all that needs to be developed. So that's why proof of concept actually, which was mentioned before, is also a really good approach, where you are trying something and then scaling it up and rolling out when you see that it is worth to invest into it even more. And the internal versus external collaboration, I think really that it's super important to balance those two. It's not enough with the one or another one, because when you are working as an in-house expert, leader, specialist, you run risk to being home blind. And when you are coming as an external consultant or expert, you run the risk to miss super important details which are laying behind. And that's why I see the power of working together and attracting the best practices, success stories, as much as possible from the external world, applying them, but in the way which is really the best possible for just this organization, considering all those limitations from the organizational perspective, cultural perspective, solution and tech perspective, resources perspective, etc. And it's a long list of what you should take into account when you are working with that, but still, it is giving good results. So just based on my experience and practice from different companies, I can tell that I came up to a conclusion that that's really the optimal approach.
Thank you so much, Amy. I think that's perfectly. I think you're absolutely right. The success stories, the communication is really the key. And then actually, I was going through all the chats, and one of the messages there as well is that they also feel that communication is one of the crucial keys for increased scalability. So it will not only help the POC, but also the scalability part. But we are running short of time, but we have the last 2 minutes. But any thoughts from you there, Ramesh, on what role collaboration plays in overcoming these challenges?
Yeah, I think collaboration is key. I mean, one of the things that I have seen, not only with my own experience, but with my customers, you know, the issue is generally when you're talking about collaboration between the business and IT, you're talking about generally there's an underlying skepticism or states of mistrust, right? That occupies these two organizations. And when they come together, you know, the business is looking at what IT are producing and what they're creating, and it's a bit of a black box exercise. They don't have any comfort around, you know, where their numbers and definitions have come from, and that generally has derailed, you know, that relationship. And once you're in that state, it becomes very, very difficult. So, you know, increasing the level of transparency between and having an increased level of communication that way, so that there is engagement all the way through the process, and there's confirmation and those elements of collaboration which bring the parties together and increase that level of trust is crucial. You know, because if you're, and to Olof's point earlier, you know, if you're building this massive data estate and a highly technical platform and nobody really understands it on the business side, they're not going to adopt it, right? And if they don't trust what you're building, then they're not going to adopt it. So yeah, for me, you know, having that ability to feedback and include, create this inclusive, trust-building, transparent relationship between all of the parties involved, and certainly during the POC stage, you know, you can do that, and it helps. You know, allows for the scalability of that of your approach to then take hold, because scalability is twofold, right? Your technology has to be able to support scalability, but also the organization has to be able to adopt it scalably, in a very inclusive way. So that's the first thing on there. And as far as external communications collaboration is concerned, you know, there's two elements to that too. I mean, we work with partners, and those partners go into our customers and they collaborate that way. But one of the other things I think that we haven't really touched upon here is collaboration within the industry itself, right? So what we try and tend to do at WhereScape is we create a community between our customers. So our customers can also collaborate and share their best practices and experiences, because they're coming from a place of very operational experience, you know. So you know, they might well have come up with something very innovative that they want to share with the industry and so on. So we found that works very well.
Perfect. Sorry for stressing on time here, but thank you so much for those insights, Ramesh. You know, industry collaboration, transparency, trust, and relationship. So I'm so sorry, but I will have to conclude this here. Otherwise, Musin will not be happy on me for sure. But thank you so much to all the panelists for your insights. There were so many other things that we could talk around and keep talking about it for hours. But I think, for example, architecture consideration and so on. But I think we listed down a lot of challenges that we face, both on the business side as well as on the IT side. And we were able to get some good insights, especially on the collaboration front, that how could that help us to overcome these challenges. So I once again thank you so much to all the panelists and also to all the participants for listening in. Hopefully we could give you some value back. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much, everybody. Panelists, thanks a lot. So you can switch off your camera and mic so that we start with